Okay, gang, this is our first of, I think, 4 or 5 videos on social psychology. The last chapter that we're going to cover, it's either 12 or 13 in whatever textbook you have. Um, and the first thing the book talks about is attitude and attitude change. So we have to know what an attitude is. And an attitude is a combination of feelings and beliefs about an object, event, or person. So um, they are learned. So an attitude is basically a belief. But we have two other components of an attitude we can have or don't have to have. For instance, emotion is I believe in climate change. Do I, and I get upset. So there's an emotional component when people say it's a hoax. But it could be you have a belief that Coke tastes better than Pepsi, and you don't care if people drink Pepsi, it doesn't bother you. So you may not have an emotional component. Or you can also have a behavioral component, which means you believe so much in the belief that you do something about it. So you're so concerned about the homeless that you go out and you volunteer. That's behavioral. But you don't have to have a behavioral. For an attitude, you just need the belief. But it could have an emotional component and it could have a behavioral component. For instance, like I said, I believe in climate change. It upsets me when people, so emotional upsets me when people say it's a hoax. So it makes me emotionally upset. And my behavioral component is I'm going to vote for people who believe in climate change. So that has all three, but you basically all you need is that belief. Then the book talks about 3 ways a person, a communicator, can help change your attitude. If I want to change your attitude, what are the common things I have to take into consideration? I'm going to give you 5. 3 are in the book, 2 are in your notes. The first one is in your book, and it's called credibility. It's very simple. People who have more credibility, we will tend to believe them more than people who don't have much credibility. Um, so a person who's gone through drug addiction has more credibility than a person who hasn't and explains all of this trials and tribulations, and we tend to believe them more. Um, Part of credibility is expertise. The more expertise you have, the more we believe you. So if our car breaks down, we go to a mechanic. We don't go to a plumber because the mechanic has more expertise. So the more expertise you have, the more chance you have of changing somebody's attitude. For instance, you watch the briefings on coronavirus, and then you have Trump saying, it's going to be over by this time, and then Fauci comes on and says, no, it's not. We tend to believe him because he got expertise in the area of pandemic diseases. So the fact is that expertise. Now, another part of expertise is if you have a dog in the fight, that gives you more chance of changing attitude. What I mean by that is if you have an expert in an area and you go against your own self, it gives you a lot more credibility. For instance, when the president of Raleigh's tobacco company came up North Carolina and said cigarettes are bad for your health, he had a lot of credibility and had a lot of effect on smokers because he's the one selling cigarettes. So that really must be a strong belief. The second one is trustworthiness. That's very simple. We tend to believe people we trust more than people we don't trust. You know, used car salesmen, lawyers, my daughter, but and politicians we don't tend to trust because they don't tell the truth all the time. Good old George Washington, I would never tell a lie. Well, of course, he told a lie. He's a politician. But the fact is that people we trust. That's why in commercials we have dear old mom, because who can we trust mom for Jiffy peanut butter because who else does more than trust your mom? The third one that's in your book is liking, and liking is broken down into 3 main areas, and all 3 are part of the liking process. One is similarity. We tend to like people that are similar to us. I see sometimes where I've seen where Afro American says that I can relate to that person because they're the same skin as color as I can relate to that because they're similar to me. Well, it's the same thing. We tend to believe people are similar. So that's why politicians go to NASCAR races and say, I'm just like you, or go to Chicago's east side where the Polish district is and eat kielbasa, trying to show that they're similar. One of the things I read where it helped Trump in the 2016 election was he wore baseball caps all the time. A lot of Americans wear baseball caps and they kind of identify with that. So they're similar. Number two part of the liking, besides similarity, is sex. I hate to say it, but sex sells. Remember those Hardee's and commercials and stuff with the girls playing volleyball. So I don't know how to do the hamburger, but and then anytime a beer commercial or liquor commercial, everybody's just gorgeous. And then the third one is humor. Humor sells too. And if you know, like during the Super Bowl, we had these great, like Doritos have this humorous commercials, and we tend to remember the product because, oh, that was funny. I like Bud Light commercials and stuff. And sometimes commercials get too funny. We don't forget what they're trying to sell, but humor. So liking is similarities, sex, and humor. The other two, which are not in the book, is audience. We have to know who our audience is. If we're trying to change a person's attitude, we have to talk directly to that audience. We're going to talk differently to an all African American group than we are to Mike Pence's group. Or we're going to talk more to talk to someone differently to people that have handicaps versus people who don't have handicaps. So if we want to change their attitude, we have to know our audience. And the last one, which is not in your book, number 5, is a message. Sometimes how you deliver the message is more important than the message itself. And so unfortunately we learned that years ago during the war, World War II, and the Nazis had Germany, and they were using the Jews as a scapegoat. And Goebbels used to say, as long as we keep saying the same thing over and over again, people will believe it. So it's just like, in instance, pretty soon we'll have these political commercials coming, and both groups will tell lies about the other group, and then they have to they go to the commission, and they say, well, you have to remove it. But if you had that commercial enough before it's removed, people tend to believe it. It's just like that famous line from the OJ trial: if the glove does not fit, you must acquit. And when we did after the trial, when they interviewed the jury, almost 10 of the 12 jurors said that thing kept going in their head. So how you deliver the message is very important. So those are the 5 things, and attitude and how to change attitudes. So we'll stop here and we'll go on to something else. Now, if you want to attack, say, in a political thing, you want to attack the credibility, you want to attack the trustworthiness, you want to say they're not like you, rich billionaires, thing versus you're not, and so you can attack all these factors in order to change attitudes. Okay, we'll leave here and we'll pick it up later. Have a good day. Stay safe.